Hey friends, welcome to the Tens and Bagels podcast, and we are approaching the final stretches of the season from both the ATP and the WTA. The WTA is coming a bit faster with the WTA Finals coming up next week. As we record, it's on a Thursday night, and the last WTA 1000 event just happened. Aside from the WTA Finals, there will be only 125s left and the ITF ones. So yeah, the big chunk of the WTA is over, and the winner Jessica Pegula finally put her hands on her second career title and her first WTA 1000 event, and she's qualified for the WTA Finals. And other news as well: America, the United States, finally has two players inside of the top five since Venus and Serena. I don't know exactly when, but we are here to talk about all of this tonight. Tonight as we speak, and I'm here with Vansh. How are you doing, man?
Doing good, Andre. Yeah, like you said, it's been a great last week in Guadalajara for the women, and that was the last tour event for them. Obviously before the WTA finals, and yeah, these tournaments in Mexico do a really good job. I think overall, just organizationally, and just the players seem to love it there, and we had a very worthy champion in the end. So yeah, and the field is now secure for the WTA finals. So yeah, we're wrapping this all up.
Cool. So I guess we can start like a little bit with the last week's event, Guadalajara. Like there were some really tough battles. A lot of players could still qualify, and yeah, are you surprised with anyone in the WTA finals field from last week?
Well, I think I mean, you obviously know that Swiatek has been the dominant player, and obviously Jabeur cemented herself with winning the two, getting to the two major finals and winning in Madrid and winning a 500 on grass. And Coco Gauff has had a really good year, so she just kept that going last week as well, just getting to another quarterfinal. Just keep making steps. I think she's four in the world now. So and then I think the main headline was Pegula and Stockery for me this last week, especially because Pegula's had a really consistent, solid year, and she's been very good the last couple of years as well. Like, just made, a lot of improvements in her game overall. Just so tough to beat. I feel like you have to play a very high level to beat her. There's not really one thing in particular she does extremely well. I think her game is, well rounded, and it's kind of hard to break her down because she is just super steady and she hits the ball really flat off her forehand side, but she moves pretty well, and she there's not really many holes in there. So I feel like you have to really beat her in order to win. And it seems like without Swiatek, especially because Swiatek has been a big roadblock for Pegula. This year I think she's lost to her like four times, and U.S. Open quarters and Roland Garros quarters. And so for her, I'm glad for Pegula because I feel like she finally got her moment in the sun, and she was able to win a title in a long time. And it feels like for a while she's just been losing to the eventual champions. So in that sense, I'm very happy for her. And then also Maria Sakkari has had a really tough year since reaching the Indian Wells final, where I really thought she had gotten a big monkey off her back and winning. She had that not so good record in semis, and we know last year she reached the U.S. Open semis and the French Open semis and had match points. So sort of going off of that arc, the next big step is to win a big title, and she definitely conquered some demons here by qualifying. But once again, wasn't the best final from her. So you kind of have to look at it both ways. But yeah, was glad that we got a final between those two because they were both far too good to have one 250 title on their resume, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Pegula has an interesting road this year, because I am checking out right now. If I'd gone past it, yeah, she. I think she was saying like one of those press conferences, I think after the U.S. Open, that she's run into world number ones, and she ran into world number ones in three of the four Grand Slams this year. She was
Yep.
beaten by Ash Barty in Australia, and then by Swiatek in the U.S. Open and Roland Garros. And I think she'll be really looking forward to maybe having a chance of beating Swiatek in the finals. It was really like one of those cases of she's been stopped by either really red hot players, like she lost to Caroline Garcia in Cincinnati, or by players who just are outstanding, like Ash Barty was, and as Swiatek is right now. Also, she lost to Simona Halep in Canada in the semis as well. Halep also went on to win the title. It was definitely like knocking on the door by losing to the champions most of the time. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that too. And yeah, there was another one like Garcia in Cincinnati, and Garcia went on to win the title. It's like it just feels like it just shows her level is right there, and especially her route to this title, I thought was very impressive. She beat 4 major champions in a row. She beat Rybakina in the first round, and she was 2 match points down, and lost the first set 6-2. Was down a break in the second. Really had to fight her way off that, and I felt like she really took that match from Rybakina, and Rybakina didn't do much wrong on those 3 match points that she had, and she wins that like 10-8 in the third set breaker, and then she goes on and beats Andreescu in the next round, 4-4 there, and took care of Stephens, who was having a really good week, 2-2, and then Azarenka always seems to play well in that one last hardcore tournament at the end of every year.
Yeah,
she's been doing that the last 3 years now. It's kind of strange. I don't know where Azarenka's really at in her career, but she was playing very well this week, and then against Sakari, it just felt like she was ready, and she just took it. And I just quite enjoy her as a person as well. Like I find her just pretty witty and funny. She has like one of those great sarcastic type personalities. And
Pegula?
I think Pegula. And I think she's really embraced her role in tennis, because obviously we know she comes from a family of billionaires. They own the Buffalo Bills. So I feel like for her, it would have just been very easy to just, play on the tour for a little while and just, kind of call it a day, because she's financially stable and she doesn't really need to be doing this, but she has so much ambition and she wants to get to the very top. And I heard her say that after she lost to Swiatek, she was really, really mad that Swiatek won the tournament, and really mad that she'd lost, because finally it felt like the spotlight was on her for the first time, and it feels like she was just sort of a part of someone else's story this whole year. But now I like that she's finally got her moment, and this feels big to me, because if she can win a 1,000 with a tough section and tough field like this, if Swiatek were to lose early in those 3 majors in Wimbledon next year, what is to say Pegula can't take advantage? Because so far she's been able to do that, and she's been more consistent than many of the top players. So it feels right to me, the rankings, that she's 3 in the world, and just behind Ons Jabeur. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's cool because like they have like very similar paths in the sense, like obviously Jabeur has been going a little bit farther in tournaments. I don't know exactly how many titles did she win this year. Is either just 1 or 2? But yeah, Jabeur had the problem of reaching 2 finals and not winning them, running again like an Elena Rybakina was playing too well, like her serve was just firing, and obviously like ran into Iga Swiatek in the US Open, so that was tough. But those are definitely very, very similar stories. And Jabeur just had to, she was essentially being second best the entire year, and I don't think that really has changed. And I guess I agree with you. Like I think Jessica Pegula is well in as the 3rd best of the year right now. She's, as I said, like she's just being stopped by players who are playing really well, not necessarily just kind of like giving away a match. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're right about them being like similar, because they're kind of in the same age range as well, and they both really, had to improve the last couple of years, because they weren't top players before 2021. I remember the start of the pandemic; no one was really talking about them as contenders, or they were outside the top 20. And actually, kind of the same thing with Sakari as well. She obviously she still has to get over the hump, but I think it's just good to see these players like just fulfill their potentials and win big titles, or keep putting themselves in position to. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like for Sakari, like she really displayed a lot of tournaments. She did. It's interesting how she's managed to like get this far as the world number 5, I guess. but she had to fight very hard for her ranking and to qualify for WTA Finals. I think she had like a really big one against Danielle Collins.
Yeah,
They
that's right.
both,
She was
yeah,
down a set and won the
yeah,
next two sets, like 3-3. And
yeah,
yeah, Collins is another name actually who I feel like probably would have made it had she just played a little bit more because
yeah,
with her health, like she has endometriosis and rheumatoid arthritis. So there's just days where she's just not feeling it, which is kind of crazy, which is understandable because like she made the Australian Open final, but then she
yeah,
took these really, really long breaks during the year. Like I remember after Wimbledon, she played basically nothing until the Open,
yeah, for sure.
and then she just comes out and has like a good tournament there, and it's like you really have to. She's one of those players who just believes she can beat anybody when she steps on the court. So to beat Cons from a set down is a really big win.
Yeah, yeah, it was a huge tournament for her. I think Ons had a bit of an issue of like a kind of things get too much to her head, I feel at times, and that can be her greatest enemy. But all credit to Rybakina because Ons at some point she was starting to pick up her game, and Rybakina just essentially hit another level.
Oh yeah, you mean the Wimbledon final?
Yeah, the Wimbledon final, yeah. But it's tough for yeah, the entire field is essentially at the mercy of Swiatek essentially at this point. And speaking of which, like not to make, because you obviously wanted to talk more about Pegula, but do you actually like? Let me change my question. I want to ask something else. Do you think Pegula can carry on this momentum and go on and win the WTA Finals?
It's tough for me to say that she's going to win the WTA finals, especially because if she's in Iga's group, that's
Yeah.
not been a not a match that I think she's going to win unless Swiatek is not at her best. Like I watched them play in San Diego, and Swiatek, like Pegula was playing really well. She was feeling the ball well. I watched her warm up, and I was like, oh, she's playing really like about as well as she can. And she took that first set 6-4. But not to do her any kind of injustice or anything, but I felt like that was more about Swiatek like really tailing off for 4 games because she was up 4-2, and then once the rain delay resumed, it was 2-2, and there wasn't not really much Pegula could do about it. Just because I think Swiatek just reaches another level that Pegula just can't reach in her game.
Yeah.
So if the 8 players are Swiatek, Jabeur, Pegula, Gauff, Sakkari at 5, Garcia at 6, Sabalenka at 7, and Kazatkina at 8, I feel like Sabalenka sneakily has had a good year.
Yeah.
Despite all of her yips and double fault issues, she still made the semis of New York. She made the semis in Rome, I think, a final in Stuttgart, I believe, and I think lost to Garcia in Cincinnati, if I'm not wrong. That was another semi. So she's like sneakily like had some of these deep runs, and she's one of those players that I feel like at her absolute peak level, she could probably be a really tough match for Swiatek, and same with Garcia. So those would be like the wild card picks for me in terms of like stopping Swiatek, because I really don't see like Kazakina, for example. I've seen Kazakina play Swiatek many times, and it's kind of like she just plays a little bit like Swiatek, but just Swiatek just does everything a little bit better than her.
Yeah.
And then Sakkari is it's tough to say how she's really going to do, but you would think she would also carry the momentum somewhat and maybe get to another semi, but it kind of depends on the groups. I think for me the most interesting is Gauff. Like how will she handle being like 4 in the world and being the 18 years old of age and having been around for 3 years? Like kind of people are expecting big things from her. She feels like the big star in a way of this tournament. So if she were to come up against Swiatek again, I think that's even more of a matchup issue than the Pegula one is.
Yeah, I think for me, Gauff is going to be interesting to see. Obviously, she's no stranger to playing doubles and singles together, but in the same tournament.
Doubles as well.
Yeah, so but I do wonder how much of an effect that's going to make on her. Like maybe even if it's mental, just to be able to prepare for both matches, and the opposition is like so strong now that like she's even in the doubles, like because if you look in a lot of the doubles draws, like the very beginning of the draws, it's a lot of players who essentially just are in the singles and just kind of team up, but don't really have much of a history of doubles, and you end up playing like the really good doubles players up to the quarterfinals onwards. But this one is going to be, she's going to be playing the best of the best in doubles all the time. There's going to be like all of those that could actually be finals, and that together with the singles, I think it's going to be a new experience for her, even though she's done doubles and singles together for the entirety of the year. And I guess the same for Pegula as well, because they're in the same team together. So that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy that they're like 2 and 3 in the world in doubles and top 4 in singles. That's quite an achievement.
Yeah, they're really good. I do think that Garcia could have a shot at winning the whole thing. I think she's one that like when she gets hot, she gets like blazing hot. So it could be rough. And she, on a good day, I think she could beat Swiatek. But
yeah, she already has actually once this year, but that was on clay in Warsaw.
He was. That's true.
And she's won on all 3 surfaces as well. I used to kind of think of her more as like a fast court player when she had her run in 2017, end of the year. But I watched her play this year, and she takes a super aggressive position, like, really close to the baseline, like taking the ball, like almost half volleying serves, and just like put so much pressure on her opponents. And she's like, talk about a good doubles player, like she really has it all at the net.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's a little bit more confident playing that way. And it feels a little more repeatable to me than it did 5 years ago. But there's also just some days where, like if there's too many variables, like wind or like different type of conditions, like humidity or some other things, and she's a little bit off, then it could also go really south really quickly. Or if she just shows up in a really big match and like has some nerves coming her way, like she did at the US Open against Jabeur. That could also happen as well. But I think I agree with you. Like she's also one of those wild cards, and she's the only one in this 7 who's beaten Swiatek this year. So that doesn't count for nothing. Yeah.
It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it does mean quite a bit in the context, I guess. So yeah, I can see, as much as I think Pegula kind of had a big breakthrough last week in winning the tournament, I think obviously like the Rybakina match was probably the most key one of all of them, and the Sakkari one was basically the cherry on top of the cake. But I would say I can see coming off those groups, Swiatek and Garcia, and I don't really know exactly who else comes through on the other side. I think I would be inclined to say Jabeur and the other on the other group, Jabeur and Sabalenka or Sakkari, but most likely Sabalenka.
Yeah, it would be cool if we saw like, some continuation of the US Open with like 3 of the 4 being Swiatek, Jabeur, and Sabalenka. And I guess Garcia would be the 4th as well. So those are your US Open semifinalists. That's kind of cool. But I feel like if like Sabalenka is like, because I'm thinking now, Sabalenka was very close at the US Open. Like she was 4-2 up in the 3rd set, and then Swiatek went into this wall mode and won like 16 of the last 20 points. But if she hadn't found that level, what is to say like Sabalenka doesn't win the whole US Open, or at least get to a final, and then maybe Jabeur wins. But it's like, and I think last year she beat Swiatek at the WTA Finals. Obviously different Swiatek then, but she's done it before. So it does seem like it would be her and Garcia. I think I agree with you there.
Yeah.
And actually, Maria Sakkari used to match up really well against Swiatek last year as well. And it was like a 2-2 head-to-head, and she'd beaten Swiatek in Ostrava on an indoor hard court. And actually, now that I realize this is indoors, the only final that Swiatek has lost this year was Krejcikova, and that was indoors as well. So maybe, I think that'll help players like Garcia and Sabalenka, where there's less variables, and like especially Sabalenka with her service yips. I feel like it being indoors could be really good for her.
Yeah, it could. It could prevent from having a wrong toss. I think it would be really good for her to be indoors.
Yeah, we see that with players who struggle with their serves. Their best surfaces tend to be like altitude or indoors.
Yeah. It was altitude last year for Sabalenka. That's one of the reasons I think she made so many errors as well. And it's crazy. It's just going a bit of on a tangent here. It's kind of crazy to think how Swiatek went last year to the finals, to the WTA finals, but she was I kind of want to say that she was nowhere near a contender to win the thing, but she was just kind of there, and we know that she's a good player, but then the transformation that she's went through this year was pretty crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like right when Barty, retired from the game, we were wondering who was it that was going to step up, and was it going to be Sakari, was it going to be Swiatek, and they had that really kind of nervy Indian Wells final. I remember like the first few games, it was like 4-all, and then once Swiatek won that, I kind of wonder what would have happened if like Sakari somehow won that match, and then we could have had like a passing of the bit, like many number ones, and then maybe then Swiatek would have settled by the clay season. But it was just so amazing that she took that, and then just like aside from like a Wimbledon loss and like a loss at a 250 in her hometown and a couple of those tournaments before the US Open, it's been Iga like all the way. And she's played like 72 matches, so it wouldn't be entirely surprising if, let's say, she struggled a little bit more in this tournament indoors and maybe didn't find her best game because she's just played so much this year.
Could be
like more matches than anyone because she's won the most.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like a runaway title for Iga. I think there's definitely could be like she could lose a round robin match and someone could get really hot. Or someone who I thought matched up really well against her was Krejcikova, but she's had so many injuries this year. So
she didn't have a chance to qualify, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think that I know you mentioned that how Pegula doesn't do anything like particularly excellent, like you say, for example, like a Swiatek running backhand or just the forehand as well, or like Sabalenka power in general. But do you think that because essentially everything began from Swiatek with her first 1,000 title this year, which I think was in Doha or Dubai, which one?
Yep.
One of the two. Doha, yeah. And do you think for Pegula we should be more like wary of her? Like, do you think her level could be a lot higher than we expect?
Yeah, I think she's definitely like sort of exceeded expectations by many in the tennis world because she's just kept plugging away like week after week and gets really close. And I feel like when players do beat her really badly, when she does get to those latter stages, by players I mean mostly Swiatek and Barty, but when they get there I feel like they have to play really, really well and be on it, because if they, like, for example, if they have some dips in focus or concentration and they just play a really bad game, you don't want to do that against Pegula, because Pegula will be like right there to take advantage. She doesn't make many easy errors. I find she's kind of like in between like an attacking player and a counterpuncher in a way.
Yeah.
Because like she hits a really flat ball, but she also like is competent in all areas in the court. Like if you give her a short ball, she will like attack and come forward, and she has good finishes at the net. Like she's able to find good angles and cut off volleys, and I think her serve is deceptively good as well. I was watching in San Diego; she was able to hit spots. It's not the fastest serve, and definitely, her second serve can be attacked. But whose second serve isn't attackable in the WTA? Like it's it's very tough to have that be like a weakness per se, like in someone's game.
Yeah.
Because like that is kind of the go-to to attack someone's second serve, and you kind of have to take advantage right from there. But and then her backhand is very solid, very dependable, and she's able to adapt to many different conditions. Like in altitude, I found it strange that she said after she'd won that I wasn't expecting this because I don't play so well in altitude, but she made the final of Madrid. So I guess if there's anyone who can do it, it would have been her in a way. But yeah, I feel like she's gonna be like a tough out for most players because there's just not many ways to hurt her. Like you really have to play a superb match, like from start to finish. I remember when like Halep played her, for example, in Canada, and like she was not playing well at all in the first set, and it just wasn't even close. It was like 6-2, and she was down a break in the second, and so she really makes you earn it in a way.
Yeah, it's true. I like the consistency of Pegula. She's one of those players that will essentially give like a good match, regardless of the opponent. Like I like how you describe it. Like she's there to always take advantage. She somehow seems to be consistent enough to kind of keep her level pretty consistent throughout the match. Like it doesn't really drop too low. Doesn't raise it too high, but like her base level tends to be pretty solid as well. She's anything somewhere between a Halep and whoever, like a Sabalenka or something, but with better volleys.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking something like that too, like between a Svitolina or like a Sabalenka, where it's like, yeah, like between Svitolina, Martins, and Sabalenka, somewhere between. It's like a really good winning formula, to be honest. Like you just do everything really well and just stay super solid, and she doesn't give much away emotionally as well. Like players go through all these ups and downs, and she's sort of just very even keeled throughout the whole match.
Yeah. And it's
a bit of like emotion here and there. I've only seen emotion from her when she's playing Swiatek, because it's just so frustrating because Swiatek gets so many balls back, and then when she's offensive, she has the heaviest forehand of the game, and like the sliding backhand you mentioned and the court coverage, it's just like next level. So
that's true. Like you mentioned how she was frustrated with Swiatek because she was getting everything back. I remember that she was very frustrated with Halep because she was getting everything back as well.
Right.
It was the classic. I think it was a gift.
She called her a pusher.
A pusher,
which is, which like in the heat of the moment was just like funny. You can relate to that, especially as a player who's played players like that. It can be really frustrating.
That's kind of interesting though. Like it kind of is a little bit of a giveaway on like what actually makes her really angry. Is that like playing someone who plays defensively well and like as consistent as she does, because then she doesn't have like the luxury of like having points. She doesn't frustrate players with her consistency. Like she finds kind of like her equal in that sense. So like that's probably like one of the reasons why like I guess she can match up well like against like I don't know, a Sabalenka or Jabeur or even Sakari, I guess, because
I think
and not so much against Swiatek or as we said Halep when she's playing well.
It's been like kind of like I remember 3 years ago she played Serena, and I don't feel like she's improved like per se that much in her game like in the last 3 years, Pegula. But it's just when you win so many matches, you just get so confident. Like every single week, she's winning like 3 or 4 matches. It's like even if you're not listing those trophies, it's like you just know like when your time comes, like you'll be there and you'll take it because you just have all this experience. And in a way, you could say the same about Sakari, but I just don't feel like that about her because she kind of puts so much pressure on herself, and you can see it sort of in her demeanor, and she's just very imposing and aggressive, and you just feel like she gets in her own head. But with Pegula, I think she's very clear about her game plan. She knows exactly, the kind of player she is, and you know what you're going to get from her. So it's nice to have a couple of players that you just, are just like bankable. You know exactly what they're going to do, what you're going to get, because then there's a little bit of that predictability, which is good mixed in with all the chaos, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like I'm trying to think of an ATP comparison, but I can't really think of one. Maybe like a Cavinori or a Berrettini, but it's just,
for Pegula or
like in terms of like just.
I keep thinking Roberto Bautista Agut, RBA, like
players like that, right?
Yeah,
or not necessarily the flashiest, but
the
ultimate professionals.
Yeah, I guess if you want to compare like somebody who actually got as far as she did, like in the rankings and had like some sort of like a similar career path and is a David Ferrer, like is a player that comes to mind. Yeah. But I think she could have like a pretty David Ferrer like career, but like
without that many titles, but like it's but like many deep runs and
but I think the big thing that could be interesting for Pegula is that there's not a lot of big serving in the WTA, whereas like that was Ferrer's biggest problem, was that his height was an issue. And that's not necessarily the thing for Pegula, even though she's kind of on the short side. It's not the worst thing, right? So I think she could surprise us. I think especially 2023 could be very interesting.
Definitely. And she's definitely closer to 30 than she is to 25. She'll be 29 in February next year. So
that's true.
We've seen players like this like kind of have a resurgent like last phase in their late 20s, and they've been able to go on a nice run for 2 or 3 years. And I think it's good. Like she could be like kind of weary and tired at this point in the year, but I think because it's like a team event, something a little bit different, kind of at home. Plus, she's playing like she's playing Billie King Cup with Coco Gauff, who she's like really good friends with. I think she'll be like just raring to go and just keep it going.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think so too. Oh, and I also just realized that we don't yet know the groups for the WTA finals. They're gonna be drawn.
So that's going to be very interesting. Like imagine if Ons, if Swiatek gets Pegula and Gauff and Kazakina, that will be like the 3 players that she's the most comfortable with this year amongst this group. So I think amongst her peers, Swiatek is 19-1 this year, which is like 95%, just crazy good.
It's insane,
yeah.
Like, and the one being Caroline Garcia.
At a 250, like on clay after Wimbledon
at home, which was like a lot of pressure too.
Right. Yeah. So and obviously. Sakari, I think, deserves credit for her clutchness this week getting to the finals, because she saved 39 out of 47 break points. And especially we know like she's not a great player. She's not known to be a really clutch player under pressure in certain situations the past couple of years, where she's, blown some leads and match points, or particularly in like some of the big matches kind of doubts herself. But when it really mattered in the match against Kudermetova, I thought she really stepped up and came up with really big forehands, like just going after the ball and just kind of backing herself in those spots. Because I feel like weaponry wise, she hits a heavier ball than Pegula does, and her ball is, and she always brings that in fire and intensity, but it just kind of gets in her own head. Like emotionally, she spends a lot of energy and she goes through so many ups and downs and roller coasters. I think before she was playing the final this week, she played against Buskova, who was another player who had like a really good run, got to the semis. Like I think she was a quarterfinalist at Wimbledon as well, and like she's one of those players that you have to play well to beat. And Sakari just like, there was a moment where she was like 4-1 up, and then it was 4-all like love 40, like within a matter of seconds. She was basically, or like minutes, she was like on the verge of having to play a third set, potentially having to play another final after that. And it's like she somehow got herself out of that mess and won it 6-4, and then kind of didn't really have much left in the tank for the final. Like emotionally, I think like physically, she's obviously a beast. Like she's one of the fittest and strongest players on the tour. But yeah, it's just something about those big matches that I think accumulates a lot of that baggage for her. But I still think she's a good enough player that at some point she will crack the code.
Yeah, it's been a while that we've been saying that. So that always it's a lot of people are starting to think that she will definitely stay like a good top 10 maybe, but cracking the code seems almost far-fetched at this point. Like there's something that she hasn't figured out.
And by that I mean kind of just win any title for me would be like sort of cracking the code, because like even at 250, like kind of what happened to Felix, like you'd get this huge lift off your back.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember she played like a final on clay after the US Open and lost to Maya Sharif.
She did, yeah. It was like ranked number 74 in the world.
Right, and it was like and it was a match where she was up like 5-3 in the first set and like 3-1 in the second, and just got really, really nervous.
Yeah,
And
it's
and
definitely something
I
mental.
wonder
It's
if there's
very
something
mental.
technically that like doesn't hold up as well under pressure, but I'm not super qualified to
Hmm.
like be the judge of that because like I've seen when she hits on the rise and when she hits her forehand and her backhand corner, especially inside out and inside in, it's like those kind of define her baseline tennis on that particular day because
Yeah,
like when those two shots and patterns are working,
yeah,
and she also has the backhand on the line and improved her serve. It's like technically she has the tools,
yeah,
but it's just like syncing that together with the moment and meeting the occasion and like not going overdrive on every single point.
yeah. That too. And I think that there is a bit of an issue, like you said, like just taking the ball on the rise. And I think that must be like a bit of a problem as well. Like if she's just kind of rushing herself a bit too much instead of like trying to like get her time to think,
Yeah,
or like just taking a step back and
especially playing in altitude and wind. And
yeah, and like just trying to like keep the ball in for a bit longer instead of like taking it so early, like give it a little bit more time and building up the points a bit more. I don't know. I'm also like I'm even less qualified than you are to like say if there's anything like that for
yeah,
for
I
that
think
situation. But yeah, like it's
I would say it's mostly mental.
yeah, it definitely looks like she just kind of gets lost and just kind of her minds get too foggy and she doesn't really figure it out like by herself because oftentimes the answer is not that difficult, like as in you can keep doing what you're doing, like, or you don't make the errors, or like if you're playing like against a player who's doing like a really well, like I don't know, like a backhands down the line, you kind of avoid that shot. Like there are answers that you can find that like are going to like solve a bunch of your problems. Might not solve all of them, but it might make things easier. But yeah, it might be the thing that she gets too nervous. Maybe she thinks about the
Yeah,
next
or
shot way
she's
too
sort of
much. Yeah, yeah,
thinking ahead a little bit too far, or kind
exactly.
of dwelling on a couple of mistakes on the past.
Yeah,
It's like really tough to
yeah. It's like living in the moment.
stop
It's
your
tough. Yeah,
mind from racing, especially when you know that you've been here many, many times and like not gotten over the line. It's just it seems kind of difficult to not have your mind wander to that. Like the last time you played her, you were
yeah,
up match points, and or last time you were in a semi, this happened. Like it's just, especially if especially because we are aware of it, the opponent is aware of it, and she knows that they know they're aware of it. So it's like, yeah,
yeah. I guess if you get your mind into this many loops, you're really bound to um get caught up like overthinking, and it might
and kind
be
of
a
like
bit of
for
a
her
thing. Yeah,
because she plays so aggressively and takes the ball so early. It's kind of like she has to hit through that. She has to hit through all of those fences in a way.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, she could definitely benefit from like a full-time sports psychologist, like just in her corner. It's like a definitely one of those things that I feel like another legacy of Swiatek is the mental aspect where she's able to just stay in that zone,
yeah,
where she's just so locked in and just so focused on the present.
yeah. And even if you like get to a point where like you get like a bit of a patch in which like you lose serve or like you pay a couple bad points, to be able to like just reset and just play the next couple points better. Um,
Yeah,
I think it's really like a it's really important, right? So like if you understanding like when to like stop the bleeding and get back to work, it's yeah, it's really massive to like mount comebacks and things like that.
definitely. Yeah, and speaking of bleedings, I mean, what a bleed of a story, you know, with
Yeah.
Simona Halep obviously testing positive
Oh
for
yeah.
Rux the stat or the you know I think I got that right? Rux the stat.
Yeah, something like that. It was a tough name to pronounce, to be fair.
Yeah, and it's one of those that's like not FDA approved in the US, but
Oh yeah.
clearly there's just um like when you get tested at the US Open, you kind of have to give like two samples of the of the test, and it's just news came out like this was the biggest I think different doping incidents since the Sharapova one.
Yeah, because Sharapova was also not FDA approved.
Yeah, and of course the people close to Simona, and she's very very popular, and she's been a big player for the last 10 years. Obviously, won 2 majors, and she put out this really like heartfelt message on social media, and you know she said that this was the biggest battle that she's going to fight, and obviously Darren Cahill, he put out this really heartfelt, emotional 2-page thing on Instagram, saying that there's no way possible that she knowingly did this.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't have too much to add on this whole thing because, like, I guess due process will just take place, and we'll just go through the system, and we'll find out. But she's definitely not been a player known to cheat in any way or do anything like that. Certainly, her reputation has been very good. What I found strange about the whole thing was obviously the whole Patrick Mouratoglou stuff, because Patrick Mouratoglou announced that he's no longer working with Halep, and I think that was on October 12th, and October 7th is when her test came back positive. So, and then now he's working with Holger Rune. So it's just like, it was an interesting timing. And we kind of, and I think the most interesting part was in her statement, she said she felt betrayed. And I don't know if that means, like, who is she referring to when she says betrayed?
Yeah. I think,
so
that's what some people were saying about that, that I thought it was interesting, is that she obviously doesn't have the time to like be meal prepping and everything like that, right? So there's a level of trust that she has to give on some people to like provide her meals and whatever, or whatever medication that she might be taking.
Yeah, like just to make sure that it's it's not on the ban list.
Yeah, so it might be someone else in part of the team then, and however they acquired that medication or for what, I don't know. And I guess they never really are going to really disclose those parts of like how something happened. But yeah, just kind of hoping that she doesn't get like a horrible like 2-year ban or something like that, because that would be pretty sad for her.
I hope for her sake, because especially because she is on the older side.
Yeah,
in her career.
She's like 30, 31.
Like a 2-year-old, like 31, but it just with the way she plays and obviously with the injuries that she's had recently, it feels like a 2-year ban would be like enough to take her out of the game for a long time and maybe even retire. So it's like, like for someone and obviously I a little bit about this drug, it's kind of used to treat anemia. And it's like it can help with like faster recovery and just give you that extra edge. But I think some of it will also depend on how much was taken or like how much was in her system, because if it was just like a very small amount, maybe the ban could get reduced from 2 years and could be appealed. But yeah, it's interesting. I think you bring up a good point about like when you hire a coach, you kind of like for her case, like there's a level of trust. You mentioned that. Like Mouratoglou, like when you have Patrick Mouratoglou as his coach, it's not just him. Like it's the whole academy pretty much, and a lot of other coaches and trainers and people that like Patrick works with.
Probably,
so just, there's a whole trust system like going on, and she pretty much got rid of her entire team before that. So she was looking for kind of a missing spark in her game. And she's done well on the court. Like she won Canada and she's won another title and semifinals of Wimbledon. So, and she's still like a top 10 player. So, yeah, I just hope for the best because I've enjoyed watching her like a lot the last 8 years.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would hope she's
pretty good for the sport. So
I don't know how much of a well, because she got like a 6 month suspension, but just like it's not definitive, but I don't know how long can a suspension go for.
Yeah, just like the waiting period itself would probably mean like Australian Open is like pretty tough too.
Yeah, I think the Australian Open is basically out of the question at this point.
Yeah. So it's I guess we'll just wait and see more on it, and we'll just I think due process just needs to be taken place.
Yeah, and it will be the case of like it is what it is. Like I don't think those decisions can be, and even if she gets to appeal the decision, it will still take time. So I don't think we'll be seeing anything from Halep for a while, unfortunately. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and just like a really tough year for her in general
Yeah.
because she had a nose surgery as well, and before that she was coming back from that ankle injury last year where she missed
Yeah.
the French Open in Wimbledon, and then she also got divorced this year. So like,
Yeah, big year, unfortunately.
yeah, and then like that surprising first round loss. I know she doesn't generally do well at the U.S. Open, but I did not expect
Yeah, especially
her to
after winning
lose.
Canada, you would
After
think
winning
that.
Canada,
Yeah.
I thought she would go pretty far, but
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of ups and downs, and we'll just wait and see what happens. But
Yeah, exactly. And then to try and finish this on a little bit of a higher note, and we are known here at Tennis and Bagels for like making predictions way ahead of time. So let's go with that one more time. Who do you think is going to win the finals? Even though we have no groups yet, nothing. How do you think it's gonna turn out?
um, well, I mean, without the groups, yeah, like you said, without the groups, it's kind of hard. But I would say, I I just can't not go with Swiatek because
Mm-hmm.
she's proven me, she's proven us, we've been like proven wrong even at the U.S. Open, for example, when
True.
you know, like the balls were probably not up to the ones that she's been practicing with in Europe, and there was this whole conversation. But even indoors, I feel like she's going to be pretty hard to beat. And with the stranglehold that she has on the women's game right now, I just can't not bet against.
Yeah.
Just can't bet against her in any way. So I'll go with Swiatek. But what if like Swiatek doesn't win? Then who would you say is your pick?
Well, I was gonna go for Caroline Garcia from the get-go, even though I know that Garcia has a better track record outdoors, but um, and I think that kind of favors her, like conditions like that. But I think I'm gonna go with her. I feel like I'm pretty confident that she can make a big impact. She's definitely like more of a like the underdog, but could even say like a dark horse. Actually, the biggest dark horse is definitely Kazakina, but um I think I would say Garcia. I would go for Garcia before the draws are made. And obviously the way things are done, any two players can be at the final at the same time. So um I think it could still be like a good Garcia win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Sabalenka. I feel like she's kind of due for a big title.
Nice.
Her last one was in Madrid, I think in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it
And
yeah, it was Madrid. She
she
lost
beat Barty.
She lost to Barty in Stuttgart and beat her back in Madrid.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that time when we had a little bit of a Barty Sabalenka rivalry. Like that
It
met
was a
my
good one.
Madrid, and it was delivering. They had some good matches. So
They did.
I would say being indoors, like Sabalenka not having much pressure. Essentially, not many people, thought she would qualify after the start that she had, and also like just being indoors and her serve, the fact that she can just sort of shrug off all those double faults. I think she looks in a better headspace right now,
Hmm.
and she also hasn't played as much since the U.S. Open, so maybe she'll be well rested. I'll go with her. If Iga doesn't win, I'll say Sabalenka does it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll say if Garcia doesn't win, I will say Swiatek. That will be my for now, just to be a little bit more bold as well. Like there's always one person like
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
So yeah, I guess that concludes it. We'll be back to discuss more of the WTA finals, like when we get the draws, and then we're gonna get Owen to join us in that one. And yeah, for now, thanks for listening. And you can follow Vansh at VanshVTK, Owen at Tennis Nation, myself, you can follow at Rolandberg Andre, and Tennis and Bagels, of course, at Tennis and Bagels. Pay attention to the horrible fake account that keeps doing hate speech. If you see anything that is absolutely terrifying or horrible, you can be sure that it is not us. We never tweet anything that is remotely offensive to anybody because we basically just talk about tennis and how well they're playing. And we don't, if we ever do something that sounds offensive and you complain to us, if it is us, we will be saying sorry. We will not be aggressively discussing. So yeah, if you spot that account, you can report it. It's not us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.